Hello there, it is a special edition on GBC 24. Now, Ghana's oral narratives of movement and settlement are replete. This is due in part to references of founding settlers emerging from caves and rock shelters used as either transitory or initial sites of residences. Such places become sacred and environmentally protected as ancestral sites. One of such is the Bosumpra rock shelter on the Kwahu plateau in the eastern region. According to historians and archaeologists, it is widely recognized as one of the most important archaeological sites in West Africa because of its long chronology spanning the period just before food production and initial development of agriculture. Unfortunately, the site is yet to go on Ghana's heritage listings to be tapped, developed, and harnessed for the national good. GBC 24's Rebekah Awuah made a trip to the site and now reports. Over the years, archaeologists have uncovered a wealth of clues to Ghana's past which had previously been hidden in her soil. Each archaeological site discloses information about a different cultural group and time period. Sites such as those at Asokrochona, the Krobo Hills, and a number of sites classed as Kintampo culture sites were all inhabited during Ghana's Stone Age. Other sites were inhabited during time frames spanning many thousands of years. These settlements left their traces in the Stone Age and lasted through the Iron Age until the 17th and 18th centuries. One of such is the Bosumpra rock shelter on the Kwahu Scarp. To locate the most sought-after rock shelter, we had to visit the home of 54-year-old Ben Ado, a native of Kwahu Abitifi and traditional owners of the site. For 26 years, that is half of his life, Ben has been working as a carver in Hamburg, Germany, where he also taught wood carving. While in Europe, he carved and promoted many items of African origin. Back home to practice what he loves best, Ben believes through carving, he can contribute to Ghana's development. Not only is he here to ply his trade, but also to develop the Bosumpra rock shelter, a family asset, into what he calls the Bosumpra cave village. To embark on this expedition, one requires a trekking pole to part thick bushes or grass obscuring the trail. The only access route to this underground hideout is long, winding, and unmotorable. Nonetheless, Ben steadily led us through the bushy and hilly path to this all-important, beautiful, yet abandoned spot. About a period of history that long precedes the earliest oral traditions in Kwahu. Inhabitants may or may not have built shelters. These humans, however, lived in caves, and there are archaeological evidence of early inhabitation. One of such caves is the famous Bosumpra cave, here in Abitifi, Kwahu. It is clear that people come here to pray, and the candles available here in the cave shows it all. The writings on the rocks also is evident that people might have lived here. The The Bosumpra rock shelter is a very ancient settlement that helps one understand the level of technological development hundreds of years back, as well as the lifestyle of the people. The rock shelter is 200 centimeters deep, with the top layer measuring 45 centimeters wide and the bottom layer of 155 centimeters. This research is based upon finds discovered in a trench by Thurston Shaw, who first excavated the site and recorded 2 levels of occupation. The excavations revealed that Bosumpra was occupied by prehistoric people and more recently occupied in the 18th and 19th centuries. For further historical briefs, I was directed to a renowned archaeologist at the University of Ghana, Professor James Ankwanda. Professor Ankwanda was quick to admit the importance of the rock shelter, citing its historic antecedents.
Bosumpra rock shelter was chosen by Thurston Shaw, an archaeologist who was attached to Achimota School, Achimota College, now called Achimota Secondary School. He was the curator of a museum that had been established there by himself. And he was a lecturer in geography at Achimota College. As part of his work there, he set up a museum, collected archaeological finds from different parts of the country and built up the museum. On a trip to the Bosumpra area, he located this Bosumpra rock shelter and decided to carry out an excavation of the deposit there. When he carried out the excavation in 1940, his findings were essentially that there was a deposit, what we call a settlement deposit by ancient peoples. He found that at the top of the deposit, which is the most recent, what we call the ground level, the most recent deposit, he found pottery and other remains, such as iron smelting remains. In ancient times, they used to smelt iron from rocks, local rocks. Instead of importing ready-made from abroad, they smelted the rocks and got iron. So there was domestic pottery at the top, which looks like present-day pottery. Then iron smelting remains and other milling stones like the one you are seeing down here, quartz milling stone. So he went further down. As you go further down, after 45 centimeters at the top, recent, dating to about 18th and 19th centuries. You go further down, in the main deposit of 155 centimeters, you have cultural materials which are prehistoric. And in his findings, he found pottery of prehistoric times decorated with impressions. So your decoration type is ancient, far earlier than the top one. As you go further down, you find remains of bones of animals, monkeys, baboons, mongoose, antelopes, and so on and so forth. He found equipment made by the prehistoric people of that area in the form of what we call Nyame Ekuma axes. These were stone tools made by prehistoric people of Kwahu area and used for clearing bush or for cultivation. You see, you can cultivate domestic plants, domestic crops, or you can cultivate wild crops, if I may explain that. Crops that have been domesticated are crops that have been taken through a certain development and tested and tried to ensure that they are not toxic, they are not poisonous, they are edible. And then they are passed as edible domesticated crops. Wild crops can also be cultivated, and those are not passed as edible.
What do the remains from Shaw's excavations establish?
It simply establishes that Bosumpra area, Bosumpra rock shelter area, was inhabited in a period that now has been dated. Shaw, at the time he was researching and excavating in 1940, they had not at the time discovered what we call radiocarbon scientific method of dating, nor a method called thermoluminescence. It will take time to discuss, to thrash out that. These methods, radiocarbon and thermoluminescence, which are usually methods developed by scientists, and the archaeologists can make use of those discoveries. But the radiocarbon method and thermoluminescence method, it is possible to date the site. At the time Shaw was researching in 1940, these discoveries had not been made. So he just guessed the date and left it. In 1974, there was a lecturer who came to this very department. He's called Andrew Smith. He went with his graduate students to that place, to Bosumpra, and they took charcoal samples and from the different levels where Shaw had excavated. And those samples they sent abroad for dating. And the date they obtained, which is crucial for the significance of Bosumpra, is between 3,300 and 3,000 BC, before Christ. That means 5,000 years ago, 5,300 or to between 5,300 and 5,000 BC. Prehistoric people living in the Bosumpra area, they used the rock shelter and they left their rubbish behind there. The rubbish that had piled there for Shaw to excavate and then Andrew Smith to re-excavate. The rubbish included oil palm materials. So about this time, Ghanaian peoples in the Kwahu forest area already had begun to exploit the palm tree and use its resources, such as the oil, right from the palm fruit and the palm kernel. Then also they exploited the palm tree for its wine, palm wine. Okay, so in terms of the significance and importance of that particular archaeological site, it simply indicates that Ghanaians in the forest, savanna countries, territories were living, hunting certain particular animals, exploiting the oil palm as a plant, an economic.
Derek Watson is reported to have re-excavated the site in 2008, positing the Bosumpra rock shelter as one of the archaeological sites in sub-Saharan West Africa with considerable antiquity than previously thought. Watson also discovered seeds, fruits, and charcoal, as well as other plant materials, including domesticated millet and cowpea at the Bosumpra cave. Even though the rock shelter is part of Ghana's heritage that interconnects with development of our communities, the site is yet to be mapped, listed, and harnessed. The Ghana Museums and Monuments Board is the legal custodian of Ghana's material cultural heritage, both movable and immovable. I had an interaction with its executive director, Dr. Zagba Na Oyote.
From the museums and monuments point of view, what have you done so far about the Bosumpra rock shelter or the Bosumpra cave?
The earliest archaeological work, as confirmed by Professor Nkwanda, the first archaeological work was done in 1944 by a gentleman called Thurston Shaw. After that, a second one was done in 1975, and recently in 2008, Derek Worsted has been working there. They found examples of pottery. That meant that when you find pottery in an old settlement, the people were quite advanced in the things they made to eat from or to drink from. They found beads and other things. We have to send archaeologists in there and other geographers to do a proper mapping of the coordinates of the site. We want to list it as a national heritage site. Which is what we do as museums and monuments. We secure the site and make sure that it's preserved for future generations so we can learn from it. But for it to become a community development resource, we have to begin conversations with the district planners and other aspects of local government so that a cluster of facilities can be built near or around it. So when you go and visit it, you can sit somewhere and drink a soft drink. And this is how you help build the base of the local community. So yes, we will go there again with archaeologists, ensure that it is properly packaged and secured. And then it will join the list of places that we are hoping that the government will list as national heritage sites, so that when it eventually makes it a list of national heritage sites, it will increase the pool of old settlements that historians and archaeologists
For now,
can learn
the information and ownership of this heritage site is localized. Ben Ado's inspiration stems back to childhood. Unfortunately for him, the Achimpemhene of Kwahu Abetifi has given him an additional parcel of vast land to make the cave village dream a reality.
This is our land, the whole down here, and this used to be our cave. And when I was a child, we always used to come here, and it inspired me to take care of the place. So along the line, I went to Germany and saw what people are doing and how they are preserving the nature. So immediately it kicked my mind and decided also to do the same here. So I stayed in Germany for 26 years, and the whole 26 years I always sent money and people to take care of the place so that nobody could fall trees or do anything here. Yeah. So I went to the forestry at Mpraeso and reported it to them, and so they came to inspect and asked me then to put some signs. They gave me a number to preserve the wood. So I made an aluminum plate and put them around the trees. And then we started also planting in between where there wasn't much trees. Yeah. So we've kept it for the past 26 years, and now it looks like this. So in the whole area, I think this is the only place where you can find some special type of wood here, like mahogany, with about 1 meter deep.
So what is so unique about the Bosumpra cave that you think will draw people here? Is it just about the rocks or what?
Yeah, it's the rocks and the shade. Because of also the trees, when you come here, you have the feeling you are somewhere. So people used to come here to pray for now, and some come to rest. Some also come here to learn, and also lots of visitors who come to Abitifi, especially to the Christian quarters, they also come here to have a look at the place. We have also a spring water which is behind here, which comes also out of the
Ben
stone.
Ado intends
some
to
take
artistically create
some of
an
it to,
imagery of
pray
human
and,
existence that represents
do
a family life
whatever,
depicting
like-
the past.
This came to my mind especially about 4 years ago when some archaeologists came here from the government to make some excavations here just behind me. And I had contact with them, and we used to write ourselves through emails. And the one Dr. Watson, he was the leader, and he told me that they have realized 13,000 BC that people were living here. So it came to my mind then to try and make the whole place like how it was 13,000 years ago. And so I've decided to make a family, because I'm an artist myself. I think it's not a problem for me to use cement, because that is something which I think is durable. To use cement to make about 2 families down here with their normal activities, like a woman looking for lice in the children's head, or maybe the father coming from the farms, and some other things, yeah. And I intend also doing first naming the trees, because we have so many different types of trees, emery, odum, different types, mahogany, and I would like to name them, make some paths also around, and also intend making some of these wild animals who used to be here in those years, like elephants, like dinosaurs, like monkeys. There I would like to make them so that in course of the walk, you could see some of these animals, just to have the feeling how here is. And most especially, I have so many friends from outside, and what they used to complain about is when they come to Ghana, they are always in a car, driving to all over. And so I intend doing something where when people come here, they can do some exercise, they can walk to satisfy them, and also to know about the history of these trees, how big they can be, how old they are, and that. And also I intend making a footpath from here to Pepiase. This will to walk to that place.
He also hopes to create a recreational square which will house restaurants, car parks, rest joints, information centers, souvenir shops, amongst others. This, he says, require huge funding which will demand government and stakeholder support. But he wants to be a trailblazer to bring about the needed funding.
Need government support, because the materials we are going to use are a bit expensive, and I will also need some helpers. For instance, on this recreational grounds, I would like to plant lots of trees, to make some orchards, to make open air auditorium, playing ground, and all these things we may need intensive monies to
Some
finance them.
excavations
And
from Ghana's
we'll be very
heritage
happy
and
if,
archival sites are kept
we are
at
to
a
get
museum in
monies
the
or
Department of
finances, then
Heritage
things will
and
be
Archival
quicker
Studies
and,
at the University of
we
Ghana,
could-
Legon.
I think it will
This
help us a
museum
lot.
opens on weekdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But a vast majority of such monuments chronicling Ghana's historic past is at the Museums and Monuments Board. This institution is poised to create awareness of the need to conserve relics of ancient times, but is handicapped financially.
One of the things that we need partnerships for are people who, when they come, you see, the National Museums and Monuments Board, we are the custodians of Ghana's material cultural heritage, as I said earlier. We can only do this in partnership with communities and also with good meaning people. So it's very expensive to undertake archaeological work, and also very expensive to secure sites. But we will want more people to know about what we do. We want more people to interact and engage with us.
Archaeology,
We're on the top of Banks
culture,
Road.
and
We've been here
tourism
since the day
are
before
interconnected.
independence. That means we are one
It is
day
an
older than
area
Ghana,
that
and
can
we'd like
rake
people
in
to
a
visit
lot
us
of
and
foreign
share our
exchange
research,
for
share our
any
collections
country.
and learn with us
So,
as we
for Professor James
proceed with
Ankwanda, the earlier the government takes up the responsibility to push more money in that sector, the better for Ghana.
It requires money to conserve sites. There are literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of prehistoric archaeological heritage sites in the country. It involves conserving them, preserving them, mapping them, and then getting people in the area of tourism. That's how the Ministry of Tourism has to work hand in hand with the Ministry of Culture, so that you get people from Ministry of Tourism to document, map out, and get people to come and visit sites like that. But it does, if I may say so, it does require funding. Unfortunately, the state, and the state means doesn't mean a particular government, NPP or NDC or CP. The state is the governance, the organism, entity responsible for the governance of this country. I'm saying that the state has a responsibility to make sure that money is provided for this. Health is important, education is important, foreign matters are important, digging for minerals and oils, and providing for all the necessaries. These are all important. But if you want to make cultural heritage important, so that tourists can come in and bring in their dollars and sterlings and so on for the benefit of the country, if you put culture and tourism at the bottom of your budget in a state, you are not doing well, if I may say so. It is time that the state begins to invest in culture and tourism. We have been talking of getting tourism to come close to the topmost resource areas such as cocoa, right? Gold, now added oil. So you got to make sure that tourism is given an important place, and culture is linked to tourism in the way we are talking. So you can see how relevant archaeology and culture and heritage are to the development of any particular country. If you go to Egypt or you go to Italy, such like places, their cultural heritage resources are given.
According to Ben Addo,
prime
even though the market in Europe is by far attractive, his continuous stay outside his motherland is contributing to the brain drain phenomenon. He has therefore returned home to an area which is yet to be fully exploited, but remains optimistic to work with like-minded partners to explore opportunities in the industry to impinge on Ghana's development. Rebekah Awuah reporting for GBC 24.